Welcome to the My Life Counts podcast, where we talk about anything dealing with mental health. My name is Jared Jones. I'm your mental health coach, and we're gonna go ahead and get this show on the road. I got with me my best friend. If you've been listening to the show, you know, Samana Watson. Samana, you there?
Yes, I am. How we doing today, brother?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm great. I'm doing great. Um, and so listeners know, man, we had a long talk before this.
As always.
You know what I mean? That that
Yes.
that that always happens. It's the show before the show. So
Yeah.
we may have to stop recording the show before the show because that was a good talk. It wasn't, we obviously dealt with some mental health, but
Yes.
it was on a deeper level for
Yes.
sure, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
So we
so
will start doing that from now on, and, and,
yeah,
and have that in the background.
right. That
Yep.
that could, we could load that up for another show.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we wanted to talk because we had a good conversation last time about boundaries, and
Hmm.
so I definitely wanted to revisit it because that show, we wasn't able to really cover uh, a lot of the things that I wanted to hit, and we're probably
Yeah.
still not gonna cover all of the things that we want to talk about when we're talking about boundaries, but I do want to go ahead and bring up the boundaries and talk about it. So, um, the first thing I wanted to talk about. So let's get very clear on what boundaries are, and we talked a lot in the last show about what boundaries are, and
Hmm.
I compared it to the margins on the paper, right?
Yes.
And see, so in my head, the boundaries are the things that allow for things to happen, right? Because we always have that thing, that emergency, that whatever that comes into play. And so boundaries are the things that kind of allow us room to be able to maneuver without going off the paper, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
without losing control. And so um that's how I see boundaries. And for the listeners who haven't listened before, I need to go back and check out some of our other shows. But Asamana is in the recovery house, and so
Hmm.
boundaries, I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but boundaries may look different for you than they would for me. Is that accurate, or what do you think about that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I would say that as far as my boundary setting, boundaries for me are kind of almost like my commandments for how I am allowing people to treat me. It is
Yeah.
what I will allow in my life. I will stand for or not tolerate, and it's my set of rules that kind of govern um, my relationships with people, um, regardless of what level that relationship is on. It is almost just my guidelines for how I will allow myself to be treated. That's what boundaries are for me.
That's a really good point because you teach people how to treat you, right?
Yes,
And so if you allow people to step over your boundaries, then what you're telling them is that you don't have any boundaries, and that it's
yes,
okay for you to do, for them to do whatever they're doing to you, right? So
hmm,
that's a really good point. Really good point. All right, so let me ask you this because I'm and again, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that
okay.
you've thought about boundaries a lot. What are some boundaries that you have to put in place, being where you are and moving forward? Like what are what how do
Wow.
yeah, how do boundaries look for you?
Now that, my brother, is a great question. Boundaries. Wow. Kind of piggybacking off what we talked about on the last show. They are the foundation, almost the cornerstone, if you will, for not even just how you allow yourself to be treated, but how you allow yourself to not only hold people accountable, but also hold yourself accountable for the decisions and actions that you take and make in life.
Mm.
And the reason that boundaries are so important is it sets up almost a law, if you will, to say, this is what I will go for, this is what I stand for, this is what I will not go for, this is what I will not stand for.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, if you start to establish these boundaries and you uphold them, well, that's the character determination. That's who you are. That's the representation of yourself that you're putting out to the world. Is this is who I am. And when you
Right.
don't uphold those boundaries, well, that's almost character assassination. That's saying this is who I'm portraying I am to the world, but that's not actually who I am. So the reason that they're so important is because you are telling the world this is who you are, and this is the person that you that you're getting, and this is the genuine you, or the genuine me, I should say. And if it's not the genuine me, then that's because I'm not upholding my boundaries. I am putting boundaries in place to say this is how I hope people would treat me, or this is how I hope I would treat people, or hope I would conduct myself, or hope people would conduct themselves towards me, instead of it actually being what it is. And
Yeah.
for me, as far as for the listeners, I am a recovering alcoholic and recovering addict. Um, the biggest boundary for me is my past, and not allowing my past to affect where I'm going in my future. And the boundary that I had to set was allowing myself time to reflect on my past, but then also to realize that the past is the past, and there's nothing that can be done about the past. The past is gone now. The
Mm.
only thing that I can deal with is the present, because
Right.
as we presently move forward, we're presently moving forward into our future. So the only thing that we can really um, um, kind of live up to is the present. And in the present, boundaries have to be set so that you don't bring the past into the present.
Mm.
And that is what is very, very difficult, especially in the recovery, in recovery for many alcoholics and addicts, is allowing the past to become a part of their future. And it's very, very easy to do without setting boundaries. But
Right.
the biggest thing, if you want to be able to get past, I shouldn't say get past, but begin to start really dealing with alcoholism and dealing with drug addiction, is setting a boundary, um, not allowing your past to influence or to start affecting where you're going in your future.
Yeah.
Um, I can expound on that, but I just
Well,
wanted to kind of answer the question first.
yeah, and there's a couple of things that you said that kind of resonated with me. So, number one, I start with discipline.
Okay.
I always say, discipline is what takes place after you no longer are motivated, right?
Yeah.
And because everybody has experienced, starting that thing or doing that thing, or you see this a lot with we just had the New Year's, and you see a lot of people have already started to go back on their New Year's resolution of being in the gym
Hmm.
and losing weight and doing all this other stuff, right? And so discipline is what happens after you're no longer motivated. And
Hmm.
some people, what typically happens is that things happen in your life which makes you or forces you to create these boundaries. And
Hmm.
once those things happen, you become motivated. But over time, it's the discipline that's going to kick in, that has to kick in order for you to maintain those boundaries. Otherwise, you end up falling right back into the trap. whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, you end up falling back into the trap because you're no longer motivated. And so it's harder to be disciplined. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so discipline is a big thing. But then another thing that you said that really resonated is that when you're teaching people when you're teaching people how to treat you, you're also relying on who you are. You're showing them who you are, and I want to talk about this for a little bit because we had a conversation after the show about labels, and I definitely wanted to bring that up into this show because people. So how do I want to start it? Okay, so what I want to say is people who think that they are not worthy,
Mm-hmm.
they have a tendency to go back on the boundaries that they have created because they feel like they are not worthy of those boundaries. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
And so I wanted to bring that in with a discussion about labels because I wonder if labels has an effect on who you think you are. I always say that the most important words are the words that follow I am.
Mm-hmm.
And these
Mm-hmm.
words are extremely important because they define you. They
Yeah.
tell you, that's why in the Bible when Moses asked God who should I say send me, he said I am and nothing else, because anything that you put after that limits me. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
don't limit me is what is the message that's being sent there. But for us, we always put words there. We always put something after I am. And those things we have to be, I always say we got to be very careful of the labels that we put, because oftentimes we identify with those labels so much that those labels define us. So if I become something, if I am something, then I may put down my boundaries because I am this thing, and that thing defines me, and that thing is not worthy of certain boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to labels, um, I wanted to talk about when we were having a talk, and you had said in the previous show that you were alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said you are, right? Is that what
Yes.
you said? Okay, yeah. And so you had explained, and this may go off a little bit, but I think it was so good that I want to bring it into this, because you had explained like
Mm-hmm.
being an alcoholic and what's the difference. Um, so can you explain that, like, because
Yeah, let me break that down.
what you, yeah, because the way you put it, it was the best I've heard.
Um, yeah, for the listeners, what we were talking about, my brother Jared had asked the question, well, can somebody stop being an alcoholic? And if they've stopped being an alcoholic and they're living their life not being an alcoholic, doesn't that mean that they're not an alcoholic anymore? And my stance on that is that, yes, they are still an alcoholic, even if they do live for the rest of their lives without ever picking up a drink or being able to control their drinking. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that I state that is because once you become an addict or an alcoholic, there's always a chance that you can fall back into that addiction. And if you've never been one, and you've always been able to control your drinking or control your drug use, and it's never been a hindrance, it's never been something that you physically or mentally depended on or needed, then it's not a second thought after you've done it. It's I've gone out to the party, I've gone out and done whatever, and that's it. I don't think about it after that.
Mm-hmm.
But as an alcoholic and as an addict, um, you have to control yourself. So if you're a recovering alcoholic and you say, okay, well, you know what? I'm not an alcoholic anymore because for the last 30 years, I haven't thought about a drink. I don't have any urges to drink. And I am cured from being alcoholic. Well, the thing that's always lingering are triggers and cravings. And anything, especially something a monumental tragedy like a death or a loss or something, can
Right. Yeah.
can trigger that you wanting to numb that pain or feel temporary relief from that.
Right.
And because you can always go back to what you know, how do I get rid of this pain? How do I get my temporary relief? Oh, I can use drugs or alcohol. That that is always still there. It's always still renting space in your mind that I can I can go drink this away, and so you can never freely be someone who socially drinks or socially does drugs or
Right.
what have you, because there is that control aspect of, oh, if I do this much or if I drink more than this or I take more than this, then I'll go back to being that. Because
Mm-hmm.
that control factor is always in you, you in essence always be an alcoholic or always be an addict because you have to discipline, like you were just using that word,
Right.
discipline your mind into saying, I have to control what I'm doing instead of someone who's never been that, not having to have to control what they're doing because that's not an aspect. That's not something that's a part of their lifestyle when it comes down to it or how they live. There's no physical or mental dependency on it.
Right.
So that's why I feel like anyone, well, excuse me, for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I'll always be an alcoholic because there's always a point that I could turn back to alcoholism if I don't stay grounded and and stay structured and stay focused on, you know, alcohol not being a fix for anything. And the day that I forget that is the day I can go back and rest on my laurels and say, oh, you know what? I don't have an urge anymore. And all right, one drink will be okay. And the problem with alcoholics and the problem with addicts is that that's how we all started. It all started out fun
Right.
until it became a dependency.
Right. Right. And so in a way, and again, thank you for explaining that because I think that's important. Um, but in a way, that label creates a boundary, and and the reason why I say that is because as long as you know that you are one, you are an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of it maintains the motivation for you not to go out and say, oh well, I can go out and have a couple drinks because it ain't I'm not alcoholic no more, right? So that
Right.
that label kind of is a boundary to say, I appreciate that, but nah, I'm gonna pass on the drink because I'm an alcoholic and I don't do that, right?
Yes.
And so labels have a way of creating boundaries, good and bad, you
Yes.
know.
I agree.
And so that's why I wanted to bring the labels into it because, like I said, the most important words the most important words in the world are the words that follow "I am." And so when you say
Mm-hmm.
"I am," what you're actually doing is you're creating these boundaries. Um, and so some people, have these self-limiting beliefs and they say, I am not worthy or I whatever. And now you're creating these boundaries in your head, which create boundaries in your life. And now because you're not worthy, you allow people to step over you or use you or abuse you because in your head, you've already created the label of you're not worthy. So these labels are extremely important. And when
Mm-hmm.
you use the label of being an alcoholic, if
Mm-hmm.
that label is helpful for you, then
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good thing. And I'm glad that like I said, we when we were talking about it, because I was like, I don't know if this label is really helpful for everybody, and you
Oh
really
no, it's definitely not. It's definitely to the individual. Just like you
exactly.
said, there are good labels and there are bad labels, and it all depends on your perspective on how you view that label. Almost like think of it as an anchor.
Hmm.
Okay, it's
Hmm.
it's 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 something tying you down to your principles, something tying you
I
down
like that.
to what you know, and in doing. Oh, let me explain it a little better than that. It's almost like because I have this label, this is my accountability for the decisions that I make and for the actions that I take. This
Hmm.
is my accountability. Is this label right here? I'm an alcoholic, therefore I will do this or I will not do this.
Right.
I'm a drug addict, therefore I will do this and I will not do this. And it's
Right.
not for anything else other than that label. Now, if somebody takes that label and says, you know what, I don't want to be reminded that I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict.
Hmm.
So, me not referring to myself as one helps me stay the course of not being an alcoholic or drug addict, then yes, by all means, do not refer to yourself as that.
Right.
But if that label keeps you anchored and keeps you grounded so that you can stand on your morals and allow yourself to adhere to the rules that are in place for you to not delve back into being an alcoholic or an addict, then continue to use that label to your benefit. Again, there's a double-edged sword. It can be a negative for some people. It can be a positive for some people. It all depends on your perspective.
Right, right, and that's the importance of it. I've heard, it's funny. I've heard people who use the idea. When people say something you can't do, and
Yeah.
some people love being told what they can't do because it gives them the motivation to actually do it. Some people,
Mm-hmm.
you tell them what they can't do and they believe you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's different for different people. And I thought that it was just, that it would be better if everybody just, used different terminology. So I'm glad that you brought that up to me, because you're right. It is different for different people. Some people need to be reminded, and that creates a very healthy boundary for them. And some people need to be free of it, and
Yes.
maybe that creates a healthy boundary for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so but that's the importance of boundaries, because you teach people how to treat you, but you're going to teach them based on who you think you are. And so
Mm-hmm.
those labels really help to create, um they really help
Let
to
me
create those
further
boundaries.
that,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me further that. It's not just setting boundaries so that people, it's upholding boundaries. And I think I know we're going to
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
that, but upholding your boundaries is not just setting your boundaries is the foundation, but upholding your boundaries is really what where the accountability comes in as far as how you allow people to treat you. Do
Absolutely.
you rest on your boundaries? Do you set a boundary and this person can cross it, but this person can't? Or
Mhm.
because this
Mhm.
happened, it's no longer a valid boundary anymore, or it is a valid boundary. A boundary, once it's set. That's it.
Right.
Regardless of what's happening, regardless of what's going on, that is, like you said, your margin. So that when something happens, you don't have to run off that piece of paper.
Right.
And if you do, there's no room for there's no room left for you to maneuver.
Right. 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 So setting the boundaries is one thing. So let's talk a little bit
Hmm.
about that. How do you set um appropriate boundaries for you? Like how do you go about setting these boundaries? Because, you know, like, people know I've been in the mental health world for so long that these are like almost, these are commonplace. This is like commonplace terminology. It's commonplace practice, and
Hmm.
so, and it's kind of hard, it's kind of like going to one of the greatest players and asking them how to do certain things, and they're so great that they forgot some of it's hard for them to teach you some of the basics, some of the foundations that they do because they do it automatically. It's like they don't even have to think about it. So
Right.
how do you go about even setting these boundaries? Like what does that even look like?
That's an amazing question. I would start with um, it all depends on what's being healthy and um, what is what's giving you your happiness and your peace of mind in life.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
let's talk specifically about you because there's a lot of people who are
okay,
in
okay,
there's a lot of people who are in your situation, right?
sure,
And
sure, sure, sure.
it's like, okay, you know, all right, I want to set boundaries, but I don't even know like how to go about setting boundaries. Like what does that even look like? Like what do I need to consider? What are some things that you are considering um as far as boundaries for you?
Great question. Okay, so let me answer it like this. I am a child of God. And my anchor, my boundary is that God comes first in any and everything that I do with this present moment and going forward in life.
Hmm.
And my boundary is that I would not let anyone, anything, or anybody interfere with my focus being God first in everything that I do. And the way that I uphold that is if there is something or someone that is trying to dissuade or distract me from my relationship with God or doing things that I feel complete or keep me in line with my path and my walk with God, then that's not for me.
Mm.
And regardless of how good it feels or how tempting it sounds or feels, that's my boundary is that I won't cross that line or dwell into that because I am focused on God. So the boundary that I personally have set in place is just saying, listen, I'm only walking this path, this path of righteousness. Now, I'm a human being, and trust me, I fall off that path all the time. But because I'm anchored to God, I'm able to get right back on that path, and I'm able
Hmm.
to keep walking that path because I have an anchor saying God first in everything that I do.
Mm.
So that is my boundary, and that's the boundary that I don't let people cross or say, listen, hey, you can go do your own thing, and you may be a good person, but if you're not aligned with what I'm aligned with, then this is my boundary.
Right.
And this is in small little details of what I do day in and day out. As far as my relationship with people, as
Hmm.
far as where I go, who I hang out with, um, um, that all plays a part in it. And I don't allow myself to be distracted by people who are going a different way.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is somebody can say, "Hey, listen, man, the fight's tonight. We're going here, and we're gonna go watch this, or let's go do this show, or let's go to this concert, or what have you." If that's
Hmm.
not something that I want to do, regardless of how fun it sounds, regardless of how what a great time is being sold to me that will have, if it doesn't align with my principles and my anchor as far as God first, then that's not what I'm going to do.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Sure.
So friend invites you to his wedding, and
Yeah.
they have, let's say they have wine or
Hmm.
some alcohol. So Jesus turned water into wine. So I mean, so it's is it cool? I mean, do you have any boundaries set up around that, or like how would that look to you? I mean, because yeah, I mean, Jesus did turn water into wine, so it should be okay for you to indulge in it, right?
N-
Or do you have boundaries
No,
set up around that?
that's a great question, and I think we're gonna really open up a can of worms with this, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing,
Good.
because it comes into the question of, do boundaries change? And yes, they do. Um, this is the thing. Let's just say, when I first went into rehab, and and getting out of rehab, if somebody had invited me to a wedding, or a bar, or a place that there were going to be drinks around, well, all that is a trigger, a temptation.
Mm-hmm.
And am I grounded enough to go to this environment, and still uphold my value system as far as staying in recovery, staying sober?
Right.
And if I'm not strong enough, and I don't feel that the temptation will overtake me, then I'm not going to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's my boundary. It's
Mm-hmm.
saying, all right, you know what? I'm not strong enough, and if I go into this environment, and these drinks, or whatever are around that I'm going to indulge, I have to set a boundary and say, no, I can't go to that.
Okay.
Doesn't matter who's getting married. Doesn't matter what's happening, how bad they want me there. Because I have to take care of me first, I have to set that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm in a place where I'm strong enough to say, oh, yeah, I can be around there and not be tempted, or, excuse me, have all these temptations around me that won't necessarily take over my mindset as far as where I'm going,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I'll go. But
Mm-hmm.
it's all about where you are mentally. Are you there? Where is your boundary? Where's your boundaries allow? Where do your boundaries allow you to go? And if your boundaries don't allow you to go there, don't go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And if you get there, if you thought that you could, if you get there and you thought you could do it, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh wow, this temptation is a little bit more than I
More
can
than you
handle,"
thought.
then
Yeah.
leave. Yeah,
Yeah. And so
but
then
your boundary, those are your guidelines.
right. And that goes to the prioritizing, right?
Hmm.
Because you have to prioritize what's more important. You know, if
Right.
a friend is asking you to a wedding
Hmm.
and wants you to drink, and you're battling between, okay, do I go and drink and I know I can't handle it, or not,
Right.
or not go, and my friend isn't gonna be a friend anymore. Well, then
Right.
now you have to question whether that friend is a real friend anyway, right?
Right.
Because that friend should know that this is a boundary that you've set. And so that friend should be able to say, "Hey, look, I'm inviting you to this wedding, and I know it's a non-alcoholic wedding. We're not gonna have any alcohol. They should be able to do that, or they should be able to respect you saying, you know what, nah, I can't. In my situation, I can't handle that. They should be able to
Right.
respect that. But it's about priorities, because if you put that
Hmm.
if you put that friendship over your sobriety, well then, because you always say, what do you always say about well, you always say this about God, but it's also said about sobriety too. So what do you always
Oh
say?
yeah. Anything you put in front of God, or anything you put in front of your recovery or sobriety, will be taken from you.
Exactly, right? And so
Hmm.
it's about prioritizing, and you
Yeah.
have to be able to decide what's most important to you, and that goes back to knowing who you are. you know
Yes.
Knowing who you are is a fundamental piece of being able to set boundaries. um
Yes.
be- because oftentimes you have to set boundaries that you're not even aware of. That a lot of times that's why you have to set these boundaries, because you're not even you do it so effortlessly that you're not even aware that this is
Right.
affecting you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's when your wife comes up and says, "Hey, it's 11 o'clock at night. Why are you still, on the phone or doing this with something for work?" It's like,
Right.
you know, you're like, well, dang, yeah, I ain't even realized that this is a problem. And
Right.
you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's the same thing with like alcohol. Is like once you become an alcoholic, you're drinking and drinking and drinking, and it's like somebody else has to stop you and be like, yo, this is a problem.
Right.
This is a problem. And you didn't even realize it. You like, man, I just drink a fifth a day. What's wrong with that? I mean, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. That's a
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
And so yeah, a lot of times boundaries are things that you don't, and that's why I said, like, people don't even know how to set them up because they're unaware of them. They're unaware.
Right.
So the first thing is that you have to be self-aware, and then you have to be
Hmm.
able to prioritize. You got to be able to say, hey, this ain't good for me. I'm not going to put myself in this situation because of this boundary. Now,
Hmm.
that takes us to another thing, though, because setting the boundaries is one thing, as you said, but holding
Yeah.
to that boundary. What happens if what happens if my friend is no longer my friend because I set these boundaries? Like, go ahead.
No, that was I'm so glad you brought that up. That is the problem. That is where we go into going. That is where we lose. Excuse me. That's where we rest on our laurels as far as setting boundaries, is because we are afraid of the end result instead of the end
Right.
result needing to be whatever it is. See, when you set a boundary, it doesn't matter what the outcome of the boundary is. What matters is how you conduct yourself as far as setting that boundary. If I say, listen, I'm not doing anything today, and you, that's your boundary as far as you're not doing anything today, and then everything great happened throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're mad about it. No, you can't be mad about it because that was your boundary, was that you said you're not doing anything today. You didn't feel well or whatever, whatever's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Let me break it down a little better than that. It's almost like this. It's like you once you say something, once you put something down as concrete and you stand for that,
Mm-hmm.
then that is about you. It's not about anybody else. It's not about anything else. It's not about any outcome. It's not about any result. It's just about how you conduct yourself in the midst of that moment. That's
Mm-hmm.
what that boundary is. It's not about the other people. It's not about who comes and goes. It's just about you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so worried about the results of setting a boundary, the results of upholding a boundary, that we forget the boundary is not about the results. It's about how I conduct myself going through the midst of it.
Mm. But that's a hard concept to navigate through because you're setting up boundaries for results,
Hmm.
right? Because so if you say all right, you know f- not drinking, right? I don't want to
Hmm.
drink because the result is gonna be that I'm not gonna fall back into alcoholism. I'm not gonna fall back into these ways.
But
um
the result is about your behavior, not the other person.
right, right, right. Okay, because you said it's not about the result, but
Right.
it is about the result, but it's about
Okay,
your
I see what
result,
you're saying.
right?
Yes, it's about your result. It's not about the other person. It's not about anything
Right,
else other than your action, what happens to you
right, right, right.
and
And
with you.
and,
Yeah.
and, and look, admittedly, sometimes that does affect other people. So, for example, the example about working late, that will have an effect on your spouse, right? that
Yes.
that does have an effect. um but ultimately it is about your results, what's happening to you, and like anything else, there are residual effects, but
Hmm.
it's about you. It is about you. And boundaries is a big part of self-care. Boundaries is a big part of self-care. A lot of people can't
Hmm.
can't take care of themselves the way they need to because they're so focused on helping other people that they don't set up boundaries well in their life. And now
Right.
those other people helping, needing to do this and needing to help this person, needing to help that person, and while you're doing that, you're losing your marriage. While you're doing that,
Right.
your kids are resenting you. While you're doing all
Mm-hmm.
of these things, you're losing the things that are should be precious, should be, paramount in your life, but it's because you haven't set up boundaries, and so
Yeah.
boundaries is an important part of self-care. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to learn how to set up boundaries and not be afraid of the consequences of setting up these boundaries. Because here's what I found: people who love you will respect your boundaries.
Yes.
And people who don't respect your boundaries, they don't love you. And
Whew.
so
Say that one more time, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. People who love you will respect your boundaries, and people who don't respect your boundaries don't love you. And so
There you go.
you have to, another boundary, right? You have to decide whether these people are good enough to be in your life. I think oftentimes we treat people, friends,
Mm-hmm.
as like jobs. And what I mean by that is this: you go to a job to interview for that job. You want that job,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
They want the job. So it's like, Asamana is my friend. I need to interview for him. I want him. I want him to be my friend. But very rarely do we take the time to say, hold up. Is the job qualified to have me? Like I know I'm good enough, or am I good enough to where the job needs to interview for me? I know I don't necessarily just need to interview for the job. The job needs to interview for me. The job needs to fit my schedule. It needs to be, good people in there. The structure needs to be right. This, that, and the third. And so when it comes to people in our lives, we're like, oh man, I need this person in my life. I need this person. But it's like, hold up, ho. But does this person qualify to be, do I really want this job? Do I really want it? Or is it just, I ain't got no friends right now, so I'll take whatever friends that come, So if I don't have a job, I'll take whatever job comes, I'll take it.
Right.
I don't care what boundaries it cross. I need a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do with our friends. It's like, well, shoot, I ain't got no friends. So whoever comes by and says, hey man, hey, how you doing, man? You want to smoke something? Yeah, whatever.
You know what's funny about that? Let me tell you something, Jay. There's a gray area with that, and you just brought up a great point, and I kind of want to speak on it real quick.
Yeah, let's go.
You said, okay, cool. So you said, people that love you will respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
And people that don't love you won't respect your boundaries. And this is the thing, the gray area with boundaries is, if you don't uphold your own boundaries, then you don't respect yourself.
Yes.
You don't love yourself enough to get the respect from people. So why should someone respect your boundaries or love you if you don't love yourself enough or respect yourself enough to uphold your own boundaries?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Look. That's perfect. Yeah. Because you're teaching people how to treat you. So
you're
teaching people how to treat you. So if you don't uphold your own boundaries, why should I uphold your boundaries?
Exactly.
Why should I? You're telling me that I don't need. Now, here's the thing about a good friend though. A good friend is gonna say, dog, you don't need that drink, man. Come on, man. Like I ain't even gonna bring you. I ain't even gonna invite you out to the club. Like I ain't even gonna do that. Now if I see you out in the club and you drinking, a good friend gonna be like, dude, why you doing that, man? Like, you already, all right, whatever. Deuces, I'm out. You
Yep.
do you. I'm out. I'll catch you later. Right?
Right.
But you're right though. But because the friend could easily be like, well, shoot, you drinking, you don't care nothing about it, so why should I care something about it? Like,
Right.
here's some more drinks. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you don't care nothing about it, I don't care nothing about it. And you have
And
to.
that's the. Go ahead, brother.
No. I was gonna say, like, you
Oh
have
no,
to
I'm about
teach
to say
those people.
the crazy. Yeah. Well, this is the crazy thing: is the
Yeah.
world that we live in. It's really. See, it's also. It all falls back on what you allow, and yes, in the world we live in, it'd be great to say, well, if that person was a good friend, they wouldn't have taken advantage of that situation. They wouldn't have taken advantage of you not upholding your boundary, and that is true. A
Yeah.
good friend or a good person would not take advantage or would not cross your boundary. However, if you're not upholding your own boundary, what makes that person bad or good for not upholding what you won't uphold for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I'm with you, but I still think there's an integrity there's a certain level like that's the
Maybe they're teaching you need to start you need to start upholding. This could be a lesson in disguise.
You know what? It's like with the analogy with the job. There's a lot of
Uh-huh.
people who hate their job. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
hate. Not even don't like. A lot of people hate their job, but it's a job,
Yeah.
right? And it brings some sort of stability, something. It brings something to them, which makes them want to keep it. And so it's the same.
Right.
It's the same with that friend. Now, I wouldn't say that that's a good friend. I would not say that that's a good friend or a good job, but it's a friend.
Right.
It's one, right. And so if a job is going to sit up here and say, look, man, I'm not going to pay you what you worth. I'm gonna pay you minimum wage. You ain't gonna get what you worth. I'm gonna work you hard. But hey, it is a job. Now, if you want that job, again, you have interviewed for the job. You didn't make the job interview for you.
Right.
So you interviewed for that friend. You said, okay, look, man, I want to be your friend. I want to be your friend. But you didn't make that friend interview for you.
Right.
And in doing that now, admittedly, when you make your friends interview for you, you probably got less friends. But
Absolutely.
our problem is we want quantity over quality.
There we go.
And so I'll rather have 300, 1,000 friends on Facebook who I don't know, who do, whatever. And I'd rather have, 20 friends around me who drink and I'm dealing with, I'm alcoholic and they drinking and they doing all of this stuff. I'd rather have 20 of those versus 3 who are good for me and who's gonna encourage me not to do those things. We like quality over quantity. No, we want quantity over quality.
Over quality, yes.
And
Absolutely. I agree.
But that goes back to, who are you? Because if you're if you are, let's say, for example, sticking with the job analogy, let's say you're just starting out. Let's say you just graduated college or high school and you're just getting a job. You are not comfortable or confident in your skills and abilities, so you're going to take whatever you can get. I understand that, right? That's like saying, okay, I don't really know who I am yet, or I know that I'm not really skilled yet, so I need to build up my skill. All right, I'll take whatever I can get. But eventually you get to the point to where you're like, hold fast. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I'm skilled at. And I'm not just going to take any job. I'm going to, now the job has to interview for me. The job has to fit my standards, And so that's like when it comes to the friends, it's like, okay, early on, yeah, you got quantity. You got to take whatever you taking whatever friends you can take. whoever want to be my friend, fine. But after a while, and knowing yourself and being confident in who you are, you need to be able to say, hold fast, all y'all can't go with me. Like the way is too the way is too narrow. I can't bring 800.
Right.
I can't bring 800 people with me. That's just
Right.
nah, no. I can't even bring 25 of y'all with me. Nah, it's the way is too narrow. And so, and since I know who I am, then I could set these boundaries. And once I set these boundaries, for example, all right, here's the boundary. I don't drink. And I don't want any friends that's going to encourage me to drink. So how many of these 25 friends encourages me to drink? Well, shoot, I could drop 10 of them off right now. Boom. I'm down to 15. Right? And so you start setting up these boundaries, but the problem is we don't want to cut off those 10. Even though we know they're bad for us, because again, it goes back to knowing who you are. We don't know who we are. And I
totally agree.
That's a big problem in and of itself. Like, we don't know who we are. So how can I set boundaries when I don't know who I am? You know?
And not even just not knowing who you are, but even for those who have an idea of who they are, not feeling like that person of whoever that person is, and knowing that this is who I am, not feeling that person is worthy. It's almost like this.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
right.
Let me kind of break this down. It's like, I just like you said, I got these friends and 20 friends, and 10 of them, you know what I mean? I can drop right now because they're not in line with what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And these other 10 of my friends are in line with what I'm thinking. But then all of a sudden somebody says, well, how come you got rid of them? And now look, they're doing bad. If they would have stayed with you and did what you were doing, then maybe they would have been doing good. Mm-hmm. And you have to set that boundary to say, well, listen, they weren't in line with what I was doing. Right. They chose to go that route.
Right.
And because they chose to go that route, I can't take on a guilty conscience because of that.
Right.
That's not my battle. And that's where we fall short in our boundary setting, is that we have this guilty conscience that because we don't uphold our boundaries and something bad or something happens to somebody else, that it's our fault or we have some part in that. And that's the fallacy. That's not the case.
Right.
It's not your part. Your part is to control you. You are your result. What are you doing in this circumstance? That's what the boundary is for. Right. And when you start to put other people, other places, other things in the result instead of just you, that's where you fall short on your boundary.
That's where you want to play the superhero. You want to you want to save everybody, you know.
Yep.
And the reality is you can't save everybody. You know, I think we did talk about this with the boundaries where maybe we talked about it. We talked about it before, but
yeah,
the with wanting to save everybody, one of the things that you have to do, and you said it, is you have to pay attention to you. You got to take care of you. If you're not good, then you can't do anything for anybody. You can't do anything for anybody. You know, that's why they tell you to take the oxygen mask and put it on yourself first when you're on the plane, right? That's why they tell you that, because you can't do anything for anybody, but you have to do something for you first. Think about it like this.
And here's the trick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, bro, but here's the trick real quick. The trick is that we have been sold into thinking that is selfish. And it is selfish, but we have been sold into thinking that selfish is a bad thing.
Exactly.
No. Selfish is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
In certain aspects. Okay, let me say that. In certain aspects, when you're being selfish and you are doing what's best for you first, that is a good thing.
Right. I,
because you cannot be best for anybody else unless you are best for you first.
exactly, exactly. And look, I
So
would even
go ahead.
question whether selfish is a bad thing at all. I think sometimes we just we want to rely on other people and think that other
Hmm.
people should do stuff that we can do ourselves, and it's like
Right.
why, but 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 think about this, like I always use the oxygen analogy on a plane, but think about this: if you're working, right,
Hmm.
and most people don't have $1,000 if an emergency comes up in the bank, right? They don't have
Right.
that, right? Okay, so let's say you're one of those people. You're one of the people who do. As a matter of fact,
Right.
you don't just have $1,000. You got $100,000 extra saved up in the bank, right? Now, somebody would say you're sitting here and you're hoarding. No, let's make it crazy. Let's do an outrageous number. Let's say you got $1 million in the bank saved up or whatever, and so somebody will say, "Man, you're being selfish. You're hoarding all this money. You could be helping. You could be doing something for somebody else because you're working hard and you're collecting money for you." Well,
Hmm.
here's the thing about that. Now, when an opportunity comes out, now when a nonprofit organization needs some money, you can say, you know what? I believe in your cause. I got $20,000. Here you go. You can
Yep.
do that, right? Now, or you could say, you know what? The service was so great at this restaurant that I'm gonna leave you $1,000 tip. You could you could
Hmm.
you could do that, right? But you can't do that if you ain't got that money in the bank, right? So you had to take the time. If you got $100 in the bank, you can't say, "All right, I'm gonna leave you $1,000 tip." You ain't got it. So you can't help somebody else because you haven't taken the time to be selfish for you. You you
Hmm.
don't you don't have the capacity to help anybody else. And so often, we want to help somebody else by giving them $10 when we only got $5. How am I give you
Yeah.
how am I give you $10 and I only got five? Now I got to borrow from somebody else to get $5 from them to give you the
Yeah.
$10, and then I'm broke. Like, come on,
Yep.
man. Like, no,
Yep.
at some point I gotta say, you know what? Nah, I need, in order for me to give you $10, I need $100 in my account. Well, why?
Yeah.
Now, most people would say, well, shoot, in order for me to give you $10, I need $10 in my account. No, heck no. Nah, because if I give you $10, I'm broke. I ain't got nothing.
Right. Right.
So now I done took all that I got, gave it to you. Now I need. And who's gonna give it to me? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I need more than, I compared the boundaries to margins on the paper. Well,
Hmm.
the margins on the paper gives you these boundaries, but the paper goes outside of the margins, right? But it's the
Yep.
boundaries that set up that say, okay, stay within this limit.
Hmm.
Because now you got more paper, but forget about that paper is for you. That paper is
Right.
for you. That's so that you don't go broke. Okay. So I can't give you all of the paper. I need to set up boundaries so I can give you, if I got $100, I can give you 25. But I need to set up
Hmm.
boundaries. Well, shoot, but you got $100. Can't you give me 80? Dude, no, because you're using up all my boundaries. Now, if I give you 80, what if somebody else need 50? And I really want to help
There
them,
you go.
but now I can't, right? Or what if I
Hmm.
forget somebody else? What if I need 50? What if I need 50? Now
And that. Uh-huh.
I used up all of my margin. And so it
Yep.
is important for us to I think we need to have a new understanding of selfish. And
Yeah.
now Now, obviously, are there some ways that, it could be, selfish, it can go extreme. Yeah, but everything can, right? Um, so, but I think when setting up these boundaries, you got to understand that it's margin around. You got to know who you are. Let me ask
Hmm.
you this.
Hmm.
Was there ever a time in your life where you had to set up boundaries and they actually worked?
Woo! Oh man, I hope you got a shovel, brother. Because we about to dig deep.
Hey man.
Yes. Um, it took me 40 years to get to boundary setting, but yes.
Mm,
Um, for the first time in my life, when I went into rehab, is for the first time when I set boundaries that I said I'm going to uphold and stuck to that. I hadn't done it for 40 years. Every boundary that I had set previously in my life, I would not adhere to it. I would not uphold it. I would only uphold it if it made me feel good or if I thought it made somebody else feel good. Regardless, let's just
mhm.
say that there was no foundation in any of my boundaries. They were all built on sand. They were not built on rock.
Look, I
And
want to come back to that point, but I want you to finish. But I want to
mhm,
come back to that point. So go ahead
okay,
and we're gonna come back to that.
okay. So because I didn't set up boundaries, I looked at the results um, of everything else except me,
Mm.
and me being accountable for not setting those boundaries, and my life spiraled out of control.
So you made it.
And
Is it fair to say you made excuses?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, more than fair to say that. That's that. Yes, yes. I lived my whole life on excuses for this, blame for this, always pointing the finger outward instead of inward, and that was a monumental downfall. And when I was able to start pointing the finger towards myself, that's when I started to say, well, wait a minute, you're the common denominator here with everything going on around you.
Right,
You
right.
have allowed this into your life. You have allowed these people to treat you this way. You have allowed this. And then I started to have to say, wait a minute, I need to take some accountability for my actions because these people are going to act however they're going to act. But how I
Right,
act is up to me.
right.
And it took me 40 years to get that. But yes, um, I finally, when I started to realize that my life was out of control without setting boundaries, I said, okay, well, one, who am I? Do I even know who I am? You
Mm-hmm.
remember, Jared, when I first went to rehab, and then and for the listeners out there, Jared was my almost my rock besides God for me getting through my rehab and me getting to where I am today. I love my brother for this, but one thing I want to share with the listeners
Absolutely.
is what you challenged me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 weeks in the rehab, you said, I want you to take a list. I want you to make a list. And I want you to list 25 things. And I want those 25 things to begin with, I am. And
Mm-hmm.
then something about you afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you something, Jay. I thought that was going to be the easiest thing in the world to do because I know me. You know what I mean? I'm Austin Mana. I
Right.
am courageous. I am uh, confident. I
Mm-hmm.
am intelligent. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I got up to about 10
Mm-hmm.
and was stumped.
Yeah.
And then I had to really, really reflect and say, well, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And that actually has how do I say this? That is when I had to really start self-reflecting and really say, well, who am I?
Yeah.
What about me is good in my eyes? What about me is bad in my eyes? Who am I trying to please in this world? Is it me? Is it God? Is it other people? And that started a whole self inventory of I am what. And
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was the the biggest landmark, I should say, as far as me starting to set boundaries, was me figuring out who I was and
Yeah.
what I stood for. And then the second thing that you asked me, and I'll never forget this, is when you asked me, you said, "What does Aunt Samana like to do?" And what did I say to you? I said,
You don't know.
"I don't know." My whole marriage,
Right.
I thought that I had tricked myself into thinking that me thinking I was making my wife happy was making me happy.
Right.
And what I needed to do was make myself think that I was making my wife happy, and that was me making myself happy, which couldn't be farther from the truth.
Right.
And I had to go revisit that and do a self inventory of that, so that I could start to say, okay, well, what do I like to do? What makes me feel the best me waking up and going throughout the day? What are those things? And it took me a little while to start investing time back into myself, to make myself to say, you know what, I'm worthy of feeling happy and being happy. I'm worthy of liking things that coincide with what I like.
Mm,
I just have to figure those things out. And
yeah.
so figuring those things out is where boundary setting comes in. Is saying, okay, well, listen, I'm going to stand for this, and I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to do that anymore. Regardless of what happens, regardless of how green the grass looks on that side, I'm going to water this grass right here and
Right.
make this grass that I'm standing on as green as possible.
Right. 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 And I think so many of us struggle with those two questions, like who am I, what do I like? Because we, since the age of 4, basically preschool, we've been institutionalized. And so a lot of us have grown up being told what to do. And so when it comes to what I like, well, I like whatever you tell me to like, and then it's like, no, 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 no. I want you to think about what you like. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, huh? What do you mean? Like, I get a say in this? And
right.
it's like, in school you listen to the teacher, at church you listen to the preacher, at home you listen to your parents, and all these authority figures are telling you what to do. And so now it's like, okay, all right, now what do you like? Well, mom, what do I like?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and it's like, and it's
That's
like,
exactly what it. Yep.
and it's like, oh, but and then your mom be like, yeah, look, you love cars. Oh, I do love cars. Oh,
Hmm.
you like basketball? Yeah, I do. I do like basketball. And it's like,
Hmm.
hold up, time out. Do you know what you like? Like, you got to go to your parents. You got to go to, but we've been trained that way. We've been
Hmm.
trained to be, and we're very good students. Whether you
Hmm.
got good grades or not, you're a very good student. All of us are. We're very good students, and
Yeah.
some of us haven't bought into the program as much as others, but in general, we all are very good students, and so then that becomes hard for us to realize what we want, because we've bought into a program, we bought into a system, which has benefited the whole of our society, but has also denied us the ability to understand us. It is
Right.
put us in a place to where now, if somebody says, "What do you like?" It's like, I don't know. Mom, Dad, what do I like? Well, okay, all right. You shouldn't have to go to different places to find what you like. You should be able to look inside of you and see it and find it. And and and
Hmm.
and one of the things, like with that exercise, when you're writing down I am, and you're writing down, the words after, I always say, like, you have to have definitive proof. So if somebody's going to say I am intelligent, that ain't good enough. Are you? Are you really intelligent? Do you have proof of your intelligence? Right? And so,
Hmm.
because a lot of people, I am, what'd you say? You said courageous. I'm brave. I'm strong. And then it's like, are you? Are you really? Because you can come up with 25 different words that that don't describe you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
you don't believe, that you don't buy into, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do have to like almost have proof. Like I'm intelligent. Why? Because I got a master's degree. And you know, and I carried a 3.0, and I did this and I did that. And, oh, okay, yeah, you are intelligent. All right, what's next? You know, and it's like, all right, you got to go through that exercise, and then you find out like, yeah, you get 3, 4, maybe 10 words in, and you're like, dang, is that all? is that it?
Right. Yeah, man.
Is that
Yeah.
it? It's like,
Oh
no,
yeah.
you're
That'll
much
wake you up.
right. No, you're
Yeah.
much more than that. But you haven't
Yeah.
taken the time to really self-evaluate. And because you haven't taken that time, no, you can't set boundaries because you don't know you. You don't know you
Yeah.
enough. You don't
Yeah.
know you haven't taken the time to realize that you're a workaholic and your job is messing up your family. And you haven't taken the time to set boundaries around your job because this is just what you do, and it's a blind spot, and you're living well and everything seems hunky-dory, but it's not.
Right.
It's not if you really do some time to self-evaluate. And you know, but I said I wanted to come back to this because you said it's been 40 years
Mm-hmm.
since you know, it took you 40 years to set these boundaries. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be closing up, but because I know a lot of
Okay.
people are in your situation.
Okay.
Why did it take 40 years? What was happening during those 40 years that made you not be able to set boundaries those 40 years? Like instead of setting boundaries, what were you doing and why?
Wow. Well, we could delve into childhood trauma and what that does, but I'm sure that's a discussion for
Oh
another
yeah,
show. But
that's a whole
yeah. But let me just kind of stick
yeah.
into the parameters of why. Uh, Seeking validation from other people instead of from God or from myself. Not feeling worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not
Mm-hmm.
feeling accepted. Um, Being afraid that I wasn't good enough because of how other people viewed me or how other people treated me.
Right.
Instead of saying that I count, I matter, and um,
My life
regardless
counts.
of my life count, exactly,
Yeah.
my life counts,
Yeah.
and my life is for me. It's not for anybody else. And how I choose to live my life, the best way that I can live it is up to me.
Right.
And what I did was I let other people take the steering wheel for my life. And I
Mm-hmm.
let other people become influencers as far as the decisions that I made and the actions that I took in living life. And then when that didn't work, I resorted to, well, oh my gosh, I'm trying to please everybody and it's not working. And what do I do now? And there's good old alcohol and good old drugs to back you up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And, well, I shouldn't say know what I mean, but anyways,
No, yeah, I get you.
it's yeah, it's because I and I know a lot of people can probably feel me on this one, and I really want people to take the time to really reflect on what I'm about to say. Is putting everything and everyone in front of you besides you. And I think that so many people in society right now have everything but them as a hierarchy. And
right.
it's almost like we cannot figure out why bad things keep happening to us, why this isn't working out, why relationships aren't working out, because we are so busy trying to put on a facade that a show of what we want people to see us as is what we're hoping people see us as,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just being comfortable with us and saying my life matters for me, not for anybody else,
Right.
just for me. And that God at the forefront of that is all that matters.
Right.
Not how much I have, not who likes me, not all the relationships that I've had in this world. None of that matters. Nothing tangible or material matters. What matters is how I feel about me and is God pleased with me. That's
Right.
it. And we are so lost, so lost in our thinking that we have almost transferred God into in pleasing God into pleasing people, and that's where we're falling short. That's where I'm falling short. Excuse me, that's where I fell short, and that's when
Yeah.
I had to set a boundary at 40 years old to say no. I cannot keep falling short. My life matters. My life matters so much because I have God in my life, and God loves me so much that I am worthy. I am worthy to be loved. I am worthy to respect myself. I am worthy to say, no, nobody's going to treat me in any type of way that I will not allow them to treat me anymore because I have God and I love myself and I respect myself. And this is my boundary.
That's that's perfect. That's perfect. I mean, that is the reality. Um, a lot of people, and I'm gonna close with this because we just had there was and I wrote a piece on this on the website. You can check out the website nylc-mentalhealthcoach.com, and and I wrote a piece on Chesley Chris, and she's the Miss North Carolina pageant winner, and
Mm-hmm.
she committed suicide. She jumped off 29th floor apartment, left suicide note, and things to do with her belongings and things like that. And there are people who are really going through in the dark, and they don't believe that their life matters, that their life counts. That's why we started My Life Counts, because the whole goal is for everybody to start to understand that my life counts. Like, everybody life count. It's not me, you, or this person or that person. No, everybody life counts. And there's so many people who
Mm-hmm.
are going through in the dark. And I titled it like the strong friend, because you do have people, you got pastors and counselors and therapists who are going through, and they feel like they can't go to anybody because they're the person who's supposed to know everything, and they're going through, and they haven't taken the time to put themselves first. Even though they teach it, even though they preach it, even though they tell other people to do it, they're not doing it themselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think a lot of people have fallen short in that area, of being able to put themselves first and understanding that boundaries is a part of that. If you're not able to set up boundaries, you're not able to put yourself first. And if you're not able to put yourself first, then you're not able to be good enough to help anybody else. You don't have the
Amen.
margin.
Yes.
You don't have the margin in your life to actually
Mm-hmm.
be a productive member of society, and for me to get the best out of you, and for you to get the best out of me. We have to have some set of boundaries, some margin that's in our lives. Otherwise, you're getting the worst version of me, and I'm getting the worst version of you, right? And that
Yes.
doesn't do good for anybody. And so that's why I started My Life Counts, because and I wanted to say, it's not your life counts. So when you're saying it, say my life counts. My life. I know your life counts. A lot of times we know other people count, but we don't necessarily put the emphasis on ourselves. So that's, that's look, in no means is that a full dive into boundaries, but I think I like having these real conversations about different topics, because I hate to say normal, but regular people are having these thoughts, and so I think it's good to really get these conversations out. And this was a good one, talking about boundaries and how to maintain, how to keep boundaries, how to create boundaries, how to maintain boundaries. Why do we even need them? These are important conversations that we will continue to have. Always check out our website is nylc-mentalhealthcoach.com. We got some good stuff on there. Got the podcast on Spotify, Amazon, all the good places. Check us out on YouTube as well. Ansamana, you are has always been amazing, bro. I appreciate you, love you. Thank you for your transparency too, man, because this is freeing a lot of people more than you know.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for allowing me to tell my story and to share with listeners, because I think it's very important that people realize that you're not alone out here, and we're all
Right.
struggling with and we all have more common denominators than we know, and more things in common than we know, but keeping it bottled up is not healthy, and having these kind of conversations are healthy, to get that out there and to let the world know that there's a lot of pain out here, and there's a lot of people going through it, and we are here for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So remember, at the end of the day, my life counts. All right. We'll see you next week. Peace.
All right, peace.